Welcome to EdLeader with your host, Dr. Rob Jackson. Join Dr. Jackson for conversations and reflections on improving educational leadership from the classroom to the boardroom and beyond. Educational leadership is an ever-evolving opportunity to make a real and lasting difference in the lives of students, parents, and the community. And now, here's your host, Dr. Rob Jackson.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the second season of the EdLeader podcast. I'm your host, Rob Jackson, and I want to thank you for spending time with me today. It's hard to believe that the second year of the EdLeader podcast is here. I've been so excited and grateful for the rapid growth of listeners over the last year. Thank you for sharing this podcast with your friends and network. I certainly hope that the number of listeners around the world means that you're finding value in the podcast. For all of us, this has been a year like none other. In addition to all that we are all going through as ed leaders, it's also been a year of change for me. The new school year brought a big change for me personally and professionally, as the season of my service as superintendent of the Edenton-Chowan school system came to a close. After 6 years in that incredible school system, I began service as the superintendent in the Carteret County Public Schools system on the Crystal Coast of North Carolina. The Carteret County Public Schools system is home to 20 amazing schools on 19 campuses and a solid core of ed leaders. As I think back to my service in Edenton-Chowan schools, I'm so grateful for all of the ed leaders in that school system who helped me as a brand new superintendent 6 years ago and ensured that I didn't stub my toe. That school system moved from a 78.9% cohort graduation rate when I arrived to 93% cohort graduation rate for the class of 2020. That's not because of me. That's a testament of the work of the ed leaders in that school system. I know that it will continue to thrive, particularly as the new superintendent, Dr. Michael Sasser, who you may recognize as a former guest on this podcast last season, begins his service there. For me, the Carteret County Public Schools system is absolutely exciting. As I've approached the work of helping the system open in a new way this year, I've certainly been absolutely delighted to meet the many ed leaders here. Beyond professional changes, like you, I've been working hard supporting and leading our team in reopening schools. Our students have returned to school on a hybrid plan, attending school in person 2 days a week and learning remotely 3 days a week. Some students, through their parents, opted for 100% remote learning. Today's guest is known for saying we can do hard things, and we're stronger together. She leads a school that absolutely radiates positivity and joy, despite the challenge of a major hurricane each of the last 2 years, and the tragedy last year of a student committing suicide. For this principal, the way is ever forward, supporting and serving others. A former language arts and science middle school teacher, today's guest began her administrative career as an assistant principal and a principal in the Wake County school system. In 2017, she joined the Carteret County Public School team and currently serves as the principal of Beaufort Middle School. She was just named the 2020-2021 Carteret County Public Schools Principal of the Year. Please allow me to introduce to you Miss Jessica Emory. Let's get to it.
Hello, Miss Emory. How are you today?
I'm pretty fabulous. How about yourself?
Very, very well. Thank you. I just so appreciate you giving some time to our listeners right now as we're all so very busy with getting the school year open, welcoming students back into the building in our case, and all the work that you've been involved in. It means a lot to me that you would take the time to spend with me to have this conversation and to share some of your experiences as we've gone through this summer and opening up the school year. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to talk with you about something I'm so passionate about, schools.
Absolutely. And For our listeners, I actually have just known Miss Emory for just over 6 weeks as I had the incredible pleasure to begin serving in Carteret County Public Schools. And very quickly after meeting her, I recognized a tremendous ed leader and asked her if she would help chair one of our reopening committees. She did an amazing job, and I was not surprised when I got on the school bus last Friday, and we were going around to recognize employees of the year that had been selected prior to my arrival. It was the first announcement of it. And we wound up at the school you serve, Miss Emory, at Beaufort Middle School. And we were there to announce to the staff and to the world that you had been selected as the 2020 Carteret County Public Schools Principal of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you. I was really very overwhelmed. I think most principals are not really ones to like recognition for themselves. We push really hard so that our students get recognized and our staff gets recognized and we recognize members of our community. So sometimes we don't know what to do with recognition when we receive it. But I'm very humbled by it and blessed to be in this county and thankful for the recognition too.
I tell you what, and I've been blessed myself several times to have the opportunity to make announcements like that, and every single time has been special. But that particular announcement was incredibly special. And for our listeners on our podcast webpage, I'll share a link to the video so you can see Miss Emory. She's the principal of the year. You may not love that, Miss Emory, but it was a very special moment. It was quite emotional for you. And in sharing your appreciation, you were very quick to acknowledge your staff. Talk to me about why it was so important that in that moment where you were being recognized, your first reaction was to really talk about the staff.
I have been trained and led by amazing educators over the years that have really instilled in me the work is not our own individually. It's really the collective work of the individuals in your building as a whole. And together you form this amazing family that really has to rely deeply on each other. You celebrate together, you laugh together, and in that journey, you accomplish amazing things. And if you lead right and you lead well, you lead alongside others. And I'm so thankful for the staff that I've worked with here at Beaufort Middle. They have had to work through some very challenging circumstances in the last couple of years. 2 hurricanes, the suicide death of a student that we had, also a staff member of ours, child, COVID, and how that impacted schools in the spring. And their work, their belief in the vision that we've developed together as a staff has made Beaufort what it is. And we've experienced great growth in the last couple of years, moving from a letter C school to a B school, being in all green and all blue and EVOS growth measures. That is significant for this school and a real change. And it wasn't something that I did. It was something that we did together. So I'm very proud of them, and they need to know that this journey is ours together. It's not mine alone.
That absolutely resonates with me. And as you were speaking, the authenticity just comes off of you in waves. And I can share with those who are listening that that's what I've experienced in the building. And so you mentioned the incredible challenges that the school staff, school community, the school family has really gone through. You mentioned the hurricanes and the extremely unfortunate death of a student by suicide and with this pandemic. And yet when I walk through the building, when I walk in the classrooms, I see joy and I see happiness and I see this incredible staff morale. What have you done to engender that? How in the world does that happen with challenge after challenge after challenge and still your folks are smiling? How is it that you're keeping that alive? And what are you doing as a leader to make it happen?
It starts with the relationships that you build and the amount of time that you invest in the people that walk through your doors every single day. I'm a very positive, altruistic individual, and I really try to model for them that attitude and that belief set day in and day out, that we can do, we can work through, we can overcome. And I don't really give a lot of opportunity to dwell on the negative and to live in a place where we complain for a long period of time. There are definitely times when we need to vent and we need to go behind a closed door and talk about a situation, but we don't rest there. We move very quickly into what do we need to do for our kids? What do we need to do for our staff? What do we need to do for our community? And how do we support each other through it, whatever that challenge may be? I had a student intern this summer, an administrative intern. And one of the comments she made one day was, I can't believe you just spent an hour with this person. I know what's on your to-do list today. And I said to her, I worked with a guidance counselor many years ago who used to talk about the emotional deposits that you make in someone's emotional bank. And that every time you put your computer screen down, or you open that door, or you stop in the hallway to talk, or you go in their classroom and sit down and talk with them, you're investing in that relationship and you're making deposits so that when you have to make a withdrawal, and you will, it's inevitable,
Right.
that there is enough there to pull from. Essentially, what that means is that they believe in you, your leadership, and your vision and your mission that you've created with them in the building. So they give more and they dig deeper. And that's really the essence of how you make it through a hurricane, and really the essence of how you show up to school on a Monday when a child has taken their life on a Friday afternoon and you face children, how you make staff believe that they can switch in 1 week from face-to-face teaching to all virtual.
Absolutely. And that relationship piece you talked about, that is absolutely key and crucial. Certainly, as I have the opportunity to talk with aspiring ed leaders or newer ed leaders, one of the things that I try to spend a lot of time talking about is the importance of relationships. That while it does take time to invest in the emotional bank, as you said, ultimately it feels like you wind up saving time in the long run because you spent that time up front, and then you can move a little quicker through a challenge when it presents itself.
You certainly can. I watched an incredible TED Talk. I think I forwarded the link to you, and she uses the metaphor of the mortar, mortar that kind of holds the bricks together in your building. The bricks being the individuals, but the mortar being the relationship and the investment that you have. So I'm a very relationship-driven person, and I push my staff into forming relationships with each other. Those relationships work for our collective good in solving problems, but they are also there as a support system when you face the inevitable struggle.
Absolutely. And thank you. And I'll place a link to that TED Talk on the podcast webpage as well, so our listeners can access that. And I absolutely agree. Those relationships are the mortar that keep us all connected as we do this really hard work, as we face challenges. The word or the term unprecedented challenge has been used since March, but I've yet to hear a term that really captures in a better way all that we've faced since in our state, March 14th, when our governor said we'd be closing the schools, and then on into this year as we began the work of planning for a new year. And so I'd like to kind of change the direction of our conversation a little bit to move from the relationships you've talked about and being able to face a challenge to this challenge we've all faced. And so in our state, very quickly, the governor said that school systems should plan for 3 scenarios, one being all of our students present in school using social distancing, one being part of the students, or initially 50% of the students present in our schools, and one being all the students being remote learners. And so as you approached that, the potential for planning for 3 different scenarios, and then ultimately the hybrid scenarios where we landed, but how did you begin that work for yourself as a leader, knowing you had to have some handle on it before you brought the team in? What was your approach to that?
My approach was to read the documents that had been provided to us by the state, analyze them and flag them, and to start processing them as an administrator, thinking, well, what does this mean for me in my building? And what does this mean for us as a district? When you are faced with regulations and recommendations, there really isn't sometimes a guide for execution. And educators are pretty strategic problem solvers. Principals are. That's why we're in the role that we're in.
That's right.
So our minds flip pretty quickly and switch pretty quickly to translation and execution. And many of us, as I talked to other principals in the system in Carteret County schools and principals across the state, we started analyzing and creating lists and spreadsheets and questions that we had. And the wonderful structure that you were able to put in place for us in Carteret County schools allowed us to really zero in on specific areas. So as a principal, instead of having to worry about every single facet of those documents, I was able to really spend some time on the transportation piece. That was the particular committee that Karen Wood and I facilitated. And that gave me great relief to know that other wonderful educators, directors, teachers, principals in the county were working on those other 6 committees, trusting their ability to decipher the document and come up with strategic plans and recommendations as well. And then being able to look back over their plans and discuss them and come up with an ultimate overall plan for the county. It was just a great approach overall. If I was responsible for every single one of those decisions that each of those committees had come up with, I'm not so sure I'd be laughing on this podcast with you right now and excited about opening school on Monday with all of the kids in the building on Monday that are in cohort A.
Right. In approaching a new school system on July 1st, ready to plan for a new year, unlike any year we had ever had, as a leader, I did not have the background information that I needed. I didn't have the contextual knowledge that I needed to really intelligently lead that work. And so having principals chair committees of stakeholders around each of these 7 areas, safety and well-being and transportation and athletics and facility maintenance, et cetera, became really important. But then as those committees began their work, certainly the work was outstanding and it was very helpful. Feel like because those committees included custodians and bus drivers and teachers and principals and assistant principals and central services staff, that it also conveyed a message. And I've not really asked you this question before, so I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, and I apologize for that. But in choosing that methodology for this really big task, what message did that send to you as somebody in the system in terms of the new superintendent came in and decided to approach it with this methodology? Or did it communicate anything to you?
Oh, it absolutely communicated a message. It said that, our experience as educators, as individuals that work in a school system and within our own schools, that our perspectives and that our knowledge bank, our ideas, they were valued. And I have been in a position as a teacher and as an administrator in the past where I have felt devalued or felt marginalized, even at times, or that my perspective or voice didn't matter. And there's nothing worse than being asked to carry out a series of tasks or jobs or a very large undertaking like this when you had absolutely no voice at the table, yet you have to shoulder whatever the outcome is going to be.
Right.
As a principal, I'm going to have to buffer and listen and hear and respond to whatever outcome takes place in this process. So it was wonderful to say, you know what, I value your opinion and it matters, and I need you at the table. I need you here. It was also wonderful for the principals to be able to be chairs of these committees, because part of our job as a leader in our building is to continue to grow our own skill set, to learn from each other, and sometimes to be placed in positions where you might be a little uncomfortable, but discomfort is really what grows you.
Uh-huh.
right?
Right.
So in talking to the other principals, we felt very honored to do that, and to serve in that way, to serve you, to serve the district in that way. And it grew many of us. It forced us into deep dissection of those documents, even more than I had on that first read, right? I did not go through the transportation aspects of the documents
Right.
in the way that I did as the transportation committee chair. And talking to other people in the district that I may not interact with quite as much on the level that I did. Our director of transportation, who was new to us in July, I spent a lot of time talking to him, and probably would not have until something fell apart with one of the buses in August.
Right. Right.
It was just a pleasure. And in speaking to members of the community and the staff too in my building, because once these recommendations came out and they were presented to the board and the plan was voted on, then the principals had to carry these recommendations into their school and had to meet with their school improvement and leadership teams and their parent support committees. And they had to execute them within your building, right? It gave me great confidence to be able to say to them, these decisions were not made by a superintendent who doesn't know us, right? He was not operating blindly. These decisions were made by the people who you know and love and have worked with. And I was confident in the process because I had been a part of it, but they became confident in the process and the decisions that had been made because they knew other people who worked here and understand what we look like and what our needs are. They were the ones making the decisions. So in execution, they just accepted. It was wonderful. It was the most beautiful thing I have seen in a while, to come into a building and say, we're basically going to change every single way we do business. And they went, just tell me how to do it. What do we need to do? What kind of signs? What do we need to mark? All right, we're going to do this cohort teaching. What is it going to look like? There was no questioning of why or how we arrived here. They trusted and they believed. And that is really a testimony to the process.
And thank you for sharing, and I appreciate that. And I apologize if that was a little bit of an uncomfortable question.
Mm-mm.
I took a lot away from it as well, just kind of watching the process unfold, because it felt like to me, with principals who were chairing the subcommittees, that it also created this feeling of shared responsibility. And so for you and Ms. Wood, who were chairing the transportation committee and having to figure out wellness checks that students would have to go through before they got on the bus and all of those things, I felt like you would have done a good job anyway because you'd want to do a good job for your school. But when you knew that all of the other principals were counting on you to do a good job with transportation while they were working on curriculum instruction or athletics or any of the other committees, that it really brought an even deeper sense of commitment to the work because you knew your colleagues and teammates were counting on you.
Absolutely. And to be able to see my colleagues present too, and the fruits of their labor, the documents that they had created, and recommendations for each of us to carry out within our buildings, it was just a wonderful thing to sit back and witness. The sense of pride that people had in that process, their ownership around it, and the trust that all of us had that you're speaking to, that I don't have to go back and reread 300 times what this committee has read already and then taken and deciphered for us. Great relief for me.
Well, and for me as well, because in coming into a brand new district, being able to really trust and empower the district leadership to make really big decisions and see them just blossom in that moment was wonderful. Quite frankly, it was absolutely wonderful. I think there's a lesson or a reminder for all ed leaders in the process we went through about valuing people and valuing voice. Because each of the committee chairs were so very good to ensure that everybody on the committee had the opportunity to speak up and to respond. And we talked about committee norms like not having a meeting after the meeting in the parking lot, but really saying it in the moment and making sure that someone who may clean the building as part of their typical responsibilities, their voice was just as important as anyone else who had any other title in the school system. And so just as a reminder to all of us that when we make big decisions, whether it's completely redo everything we do in a pandemic or how to load buses in a typical year, to really involve the folks who are doing the work in an authentic way leads to a better outcome in the end.
I'm so happy that you tied that back into the work that happens in schools, because that's really a part of what has been the success at Beaufort Middle School. And I think in any school that's been successful and is successful is that you do work very hard to make sure your staff members, from your custodians to your bookkeepers to your cafeteria and nutritional staff, your TAs, your teachers, whoever they are, itinerant staff, that they do have a place in the decision making that is happening within your building. I really believe in that flattened leadership model. You know, I may have an idea of what direction we need to go, and I may see very clearly some of the things that need to change, but it has to be our plan that we construct together. Our norms are the 3 Ps. And for us, it's you're present in the meeting. I don't call many meetings. If I can accomplish that business in an email, it's going to happen that way. And I'm also famous for canceling a meeting. We have meetings that are slated for Mondays after school. Every Monday has a designated day, but if I get to a Monday and there's nothing pressing for my school improvement leadership team, sometimes we'll cancel that meeting. So they know when we are meeting, it really is important business that we're talking about. So I ask them to be present. That means they're shutting down their devices, they're off their phone, they're closing out the conversation that they had 25 minutes prior with another colleague. They're really tuned in to whatever the topic or topics are. I ask them to be a participant, because there is nothing worse than, like what you said, having a strong opinion about something or being a representative for a department or a team, and you don't participate in the conversation and you don't participate in the decision making, but you are out in the parking lot talking about it that afternoon or complaining about it in a classroom behind a closed door the next day. And the last one is that they are a positive problem solver, right? We're here to say, yeah, this might be a stinky situation that we're working through, and we might give that stinky situation just a little bit of airtime because we do need a process, but we're going to quickly move into how are we going to positively solve this?
Absolutely.
Always putting those three Ps in front of my staff members and really looking at whatever the decision is that needs to be made, whatever the work is, and who needs to be at the table. Who are those stakeholders that are going to be impacted by this, that are going to be asked to carry out the work? They're the ones that need to be there. Otherwise, they don't understand the why. They have no idea how it's going to happen. It's my individual plan all of a sudden. There's that principal doing this. She doesn't understand.
Absolutely. I love that. The 3 Ps in a meeting: being present, being a participant, and being a problem solver. That'll absolutely preach. And I appreciate that. Maybe that's the 4 Ps. After we make this decision, we all preach it to everyone else, because
Yeah.
we've been present, we participated, and we worked really hard to be a problem solver. Well, Jessica, just kind of move to the end of our conversation. As the Carteret County Public Schools Principal of the Year, you'll have the opportunity to speak up for principals and for schools and for others in this work and in this business. You were standing in front of a local Rotary Club and just wanted to share one message about education in 2020. What would that be? What are you telling the community in this moment about the work of Beaufort Middle School and public education in general?
I'm very proud to be a public school educator, because public schools open their doors to every single child. And we don't turn families away, and we don't turn children away. That can't be said for other school organizations that exist. That is not the role of a public school. We roll out the red carpet for every child, and we meet every child where their needs are. And I've had the amazing privilege of seeing educators reinvent and bend over backwards to figure out how to help a child be successful in school from wherever they have started when they enter in our building. And I truly believe in the capacity for every single child to grow. And when you believe that and you say, this is a safe place for you and we welcome you in, guess what? It's possible. It really is. magical, mythical unicorn growth for every child. It really does exist. But you have to open your heart to them and open your doors to them. And you have to be flexible in your thinking. Sometimes you have to modify and change what you're doing in your building. And public educators do that really well. I learn so much from my staff and my children and my colleagues every single day. And I'm just blessed to be in this profession. It gives me great joy. It is the most exciting day that you can have. You never know what you're going to face when you walk in your building.
That's right. That's right.
You may have a to-do list and an agenda, but it's most likely going to shift several times throughout the day. I have never left my building, though. Not one time have I ever left my building and not been able to point to several examples of success and promise and hope, even on the most challenging and most difficult of days. And sometimes it's the most challenging and most difficult that you see the most promise and you see the greatest hope.
There is a reason that you have been selected as the 2020 Carteret County Public Schools Principal of the Year. Clearly very well deserved. I absolutely appreciate you and appreciate the work you have done, are doing, and will do. And really want to just say thank you again in all of the busyness that you're currently going through as we continue to get schools open back under this hybrid model. You've given time today. And so thank you so much for doing that. We very much appreciate you, and I very much appreciate you. Thank you.
Dr. Jackson, I appreciate you, and we are so thankful you are here in Carteret County Schools. You speak my language, right? Which is this attitude and belief of we can do amazing things, and we can shine a light in our district and in our schools, which really is all about hope and possibility. So we're thrilled to have you here, and I'm excited about this school year. I can't wait to see all these babies in the building on Monday. We've missed them. Yes. There is nothing worse than an empty school building.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I love that, and we're going to leave that right there. We can and will do amazing things. Our students can and will do amazing things. Jessica Emory, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed our time today with Miss Emory. As she shared, relationships are the mortar that keeps all of us connected in education. I'm proud to be connected to each of you through this podcast. I'm looking forward to another great year of powerful conversations with outstanding ed leaders. This season, I'll also be sharing a special series titled Lessons from the Lightkeeper. Remember, show notes are available at drrobjackson.com. Thank you for spending time with me today, and thank you for all that you do for every student, every teacher, and every staff member. You are making a difference. If no one else has told you, I want you to know that I believe in you. Good day.
Thank you for listening to the EdLeader podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and consider leaving a review with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so that we may continue to grow the EdLeader community. We hope that you have enjoyed your time with Dr. Jackson. Until next time.